I'm here with Laurent David and William Berger from La Suspendida, the first ever jazz metal opera. How you doing today, gentlemen?
Good, wet, cold, New York.
Same, likewise.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Best time of year. So we're here today to talk about this massive opus that you've created together. First, tell me, how did this idea come about?
Yeah.
You start this.
I'm afraid
Yeah.
so. In fact, it was like during hiking with Andromeda and Arya.
Hiking.
We
Yeah.
were talking about
I didn't know
music.
that.
Huh?
I did not know
You
that.
no, yeah, you will discover many things today. Yeah. And yes, we were talking, and she was like, we should do that. Many projects, and I would like to make an opera. She started with that, and I said, like, I'm an organizer, so I'm organized many things in music. So I said, yes, you can do this, but you need to have that first step, and then to have another step, and this one, etc. So it's like I described all the steps, she needed to make that opera
Yeah.
being true. And and it started to born in my mind. It's like,
Yeah.
let's do it. So that was the first thing. And then I really wanted to find a topic that fits to the two worlds, like the world of the opera and the world of metal. Something about love, something about death,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
a bit more dark. Opera is already dark, and it's like, it's always about
It's
suicide,
always about death.
incest, about
Necrophilia.
Yeah.
things like this.
Mhm.
And in fact, I found that story that is already used by different metal bands of Dr. Tensler. And I read the story, I said, okay, that's very interesting, but if it's an opera, we have to do that differently. And I really wanted to have that story to be told by the woman, And that's why I asked, I don't know how to, I don't even remember how it started, like how I told
do.
you that I don't remember that. When did it
Okay,
start?
so during COVID,
Yes, it was during COVID. That's true.
I've been doing community showcases, and I'm still doing them. But during COVID, we decided to do some online, so that allowed us to get in touch with people we knew, or people we knew outside of New York. And some people here suggested, you have to talk to Andromeda specifically. And I said, okay. And we included, I believe it was a Folterkammer video in our showcase of mergers and compositions was what we were doing. And then after that, she said, yeah, that was great fun, but really we had another ulterior motive for speaking to you, which was that we understand you're an opera person and a writer, and we have an idea for a story. And then I talked to both of them. But this is what's cool about this. As far as I remember, they told me about the story of that happened in history of Dr. Tanzler and Maria Elena Milagro. And they said, look at this story, like on Wikipedia or something, and see if there's an opera in it. If you think there's an opera in it. And I said, yes, this is an opera. I looked at it immediately, within minutes.
We just started like this, only about the story itself.
And then I said, but it's only an opera if we tell it from her point of view. And he said, that's what we were thinking. So there was this moment of like, oh, this is already beyond, this is already bigger than the sum of its parts. This is a big work that's looking for us to make it happen. And for me, it was because there were so many things because of what makes an opera, because there are so many things that can't be said in words or that if you say are reduced. But if you let the music tell you a lot of this non-literally, it's expanded. So, like he said, there are songs about Tanzler screwing a corpse, which he did. And they're good. But they're 3-minute songs because that's what it takes to say like, oh, I'm so weird, I screw corpses, and that's great. But what if, and also Andromeda was very interested in female empowerment just as a general topic and all that. And so it was this idea of what if she's not a completely passive victim? But because opera is always more interesting that way. And when you read about an opera, like say we're doing Madame Butterfly right now at my work, when you read the synopsis, it looks like, oh yeah, passive Asian victim who like gets her hands on a hot white man and can't cope after that and kills herself. But when you hear the music, it's like, wait a second, she's the agent. She's the agent of everything that happens, good and bad. And that's a whole different story, and it's much, much more interesting. So that's where we were.
Okay, and so that's also why you went jazz, metal, and opera, probably, to
I think
convey all these things that you can't quite use just with lyrics or words or one genre or a 3-minute song, because the scope of the work is quite massive and large, and the opera itself as well, right?
It's also who we were and are.
Yeah.
And, Andromeda as, I always refer to her as a classically trained singer gone bad, gone to Satan in black metal. And it applies. And then, of course, Laurent as a world-renowned, beyond genre person. Is it jazz? Is it metal? And then for me, I'm not the only one, but, the metalheads at the opera, there are some. Not a lot, but more than you would think. And it's important to remember that, and they just knew this instinctively, besides Andromeda's training, that opera is a form of drama, not a form of music. There's no form of music called opera. It's a methodology of drama, of telling a story that gives voice to people who don't normally have sufficient amount of voice in other forms. Well, if you're talking about a dead and rotting dominatrix, I think you've got an opera on your hands or you've got nothing at all.
That's so true. And the genre, jazz and metal together, I think that's something special because it depends from where you are. If you are from the metal world, when you have jazz metal, it's only jazz. When you are from the jazz world, it's only metal. That's very interesting. But there is many bands now that use like saxophone or trombone or trumpet, in their metal band. That's a kind of jazz metal. And what we do with Kilter is not having any guitar.
Yeah.
And then that's why that saxophone makes that sound jazz, and it's also how we use the harmonies.
Yeah.
And how we play as well, especially Kenny, because Kenny is a jazz musician in the metal. It's like you can write whatever you want, you will do something else.
Yeah.
But it will always be in the form, And in a jazz way of playing, that's something we talk about very often. That do we have to keep that word jazz, or even to keep that word metal? And sometimes we say avant metal or something like this. So it's a bit confusing, but that's also interesting to confuse the people, to not exactly know what is it about, and how it sounds, because it's an opera. Okay, we can see, we have an image of it. But when you put jazz and metal just before the word opera, it's like, no, I don't know. I have to listen to it.
This is part of our mission.
No.
I don't think we realized it when we started, but jazz, metal, and opera have the most obnoxious gatekeepers of any genre, of anything out there, respectively.
Of course.
And so, if you don't do this, it's not authentic. And so part of what goaded us on was, since the story is about crossing borders and between realms of existence, between nations, that's a big part of it too, between languages and so on and so forth, that this was part of the appeal to us. It's like, it's a jazz metal opera. Fuck all y'all, and let's see if we can pull that off.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you've pulled it off, and also I think one of you or both of you coined the term a genre of one, which I do believe
that's right.
is accurate, because again, all these genres are so gate kept, but then mixing all three, as far as I know, hasn't been done yet until now. So
That's another very important thing to me and in my work in classical music. And I'm hearing now Laurent saying that it's important to him, even though I don't think he realized it, but also, genre being a word also for gender, it's the same word, and for races, genera, and being a mixed ethnicity, queer person. Realize that everybody has an asterisk by them now at this point, no matter what you are, not only sexually, ethnically. I've got absolutely straight as a highway in Kansas friends who'll be like, yeah, I'm straight, but I'm not like those guys. So everybody is a genre of one. Mm-hmm. And that is actually the future and the beauty of that. Maria Elena in our work is the herald of the new world.
yeah,
Where everybody's a genre of one, and there's no more like immigration at the border or gatekeeping, because except that we all gatekeep one at a time. Thanks for asking.
That's so New York to think that you are unique.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's not an ego
There is
thing.
an American thing there going on about like autochthonic. I rode in on the plains on a horse.
Sure.
Yeah,
But it's not in the ego way. It's not like, I'm a unique person. It's not this. It's like, it's a place where everybody is unique. And when you feel different, you are also unique. That's different, When you are different, it doesn't mean that you have a big ego.
yeah.
When you are different, it's maybe you have mental issues, maybe you have real taste, maybe you have real sexualities, I don't know. But here, you can be whoever you want and nobody is judging you. That's something you feel when you are in New York. It's like, and that kind of music, I don't know if it would have been possible to do it somewhere else.
yeah, I agree.
That's something really special from here. It's like, even if I'm French, I feel that when I'm here. It's like, I can have a weird accent or a weird word, and it's okay. Nobody is judging me. When I speak English in France, for example, people are judging me. Oh, your English is bad. I don't care. When I am in New York, nobody cares about it. So
This is a whole big issue lately for us that
Yeah.
we're talking about. It's very interesting, language as identity. But that came up with in my previous book. It was actually about the piece that we've discussed. You may or may not be familiar with the Verdi Requiem, which is what is it? And if you need to say, well, it's church music, well, it isn't. It's dramatic music. Anyway, so that it is a genre of one and a format for how we should approach everything, and I'm there for it.
All right, could you guys delve a little bit deeper into Maria Elena's character and her journey after death, particularly how the opera portrays her as an expression of self-determination instead of just a victim?
I'll start, but then I really want to hear from you on this because, well, like I said, we set out to make her a certain way that you wouldn't have anticipated from reading the story. Not to be contrary, but to be true. This was who Andromeda needed to sing and who I found most compelling dramatically, and I think Laurent did too. But she, it turns out that she is scared and frightened of the future of crossing this border. And why shouldn't she be? She's a woman who died at 21? Or something like that.
Before, I think, but
No, but 21 years old, I think.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, maybe.
And, or 18 or so, too young.
Yeah.
And again, so I put my experience of, well, we all did, people we know who died too young, and my experience of the AIDS epidemic and this sort of thing in there of like, it's not right. It's just not right. And so you can tell the forces of life and death, like we have the arguments at the gates of death, you can tell them, I don't care what your rules are. This is not right. And like Orestes and the Oresteia of Aeschylus, because I'm pretentious enough to make the comparison. It is saying, like, yes, I'm speaking to the gods, and I'm saying, no, I know you're wrong, because I know it in my heart. And that changes everything. That literally changes the cellular makeup of the universe if somebody does that. And we talked about this. We sat here at the table and we talked about these things in terms of music and expression. So she is scared. And one thing that was very important to Ed and all of us, but Ed was the one who brought it up, was that it has to be a journey to acceptance. And the idea of maybe it's okay to die. Maybe, like we were talking previously about getting rid of things that no longer serve us.
Yeah.
And it was a journey. We saw like the really radical and subversive story being that journey to an acceptance of, well, maybe I don't have to be the young, beautiful Latina anymore. Maybe I can be disembodied. Is it a happy ending? Is it a tragic ending? It's open. It's all of these. When she, I'll give it away, spoiler alert, she enters the realm of the dead, along with all the other dead people. So she's unique, just like everybody else. And it is both happy and tragic and all that. So that's her journey. And the ambiguity, I think, was a little important for all of us too. But we did, and Ed really brought up a lot about the idea of it's okay to die at a certain point after you've had your moment and embraced your full personhood.
But he didn't say that with the same point of view. It's okay to die. That's what she thinks about her death. Yeah. But it's also, from Ed's point of view, I think he's not here today, but it's like, I have to accept that somebody I loved died.
Yes.
It's also that way. And that's also what she's saying when she's in the limbo. It's Maria Elena. She tries to tell you it's okay to die. Then you can think about it and you can decide by yourself, okay, it's okay to die. And what was funny when we started working on the character itself, it's like things were kind of obvious about what she was thinking about. It's like somebody was born during the process, and it was fun because you really have to discover her. You don't know her. We don't know her. In fact, the story we know, nobody knows about her. Yeah. It's like it doesn't tell nothing about her.
Yeah.
And that's something I wanted to do. It's like, okay, she needs to be alive, still, and then she can say something. She can say, hey, maybe you should ask me before doing whatever with my body. And that's something I wanted to give her, like between the two deaths she's living. But it was really funny, like, my God, that woman, she's thinking that way, that like, okay, and it was outside of ourselves, finally. It's like, it was obvious.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to try and say this, but like, we each of the four of us came to the table with different ideas, and as we threw them on the table, it told itself. And we did not, I don't think any of us knew that it would be the story as it stands now when we came. And I wanted a lot of different parts. I wanted different singers and all that. And I wanted a much more blatantly political commentary on immigration and refugees and this sort of thing. And as the story, it was like, well, if we do that, blah, 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 it made it clear what we needed to do. And that was neat. That's like the other day, somebody asked me for something else. What makes a good collaboration? What makes a good collaborator? And I said that.
Yeah, I think you succeeded in that. The four of you came to the table and you built this character out of all of your separate opinions and desires for how she would be portrayed and what she went through.
It took a certain amount of, as we were talking about before in terms of fitness, it took a certain amount of putting ego on the shelf. And, there are 4 egos here. That was some heavy lifting right there. And so the fact that happened, that, we could each see, wait a second, if you step back a moment, look at what's on the other end of this, it's even better. The fact that by grace alone, that was able to happen, I'm sure that's how I see it, with this quartet, is the most remarkable thing.